create a system where everybody wins. And if you take the time to do that, that's where the breakthroughs happen for me, at least.
Yeah, it's a great way to approach this. I want to go back again. You mentioned that you almost went bankrupt because of, recruiting issues. Why was that? What was the issue that you were facing?
Well, I joke now. It's funny now. It wasn't funny then. I joke now that I'm a recovering sales junkie. So, I thought it was like, to grow a business, you need marketing, you need leads. So I focused heavily, I got obsessed with that early on because I saw how the internet changed things. And I was like, wow, you can select service types and you can control your lead flow. Like my dad was like, we're mainly word of mouth. And, it was like, are we going to get a call today? Are we going to get 10? Are we going to get 0? I never loved that part of the business. And so I went from marketing to then sales, right? Which is making the marketing effective and efficient and closing projects. And so 2018 was different. I was so focused on selling. My team would bring in big contracts. We'd high five. We'd get all excited. And I wasn't paying attention to my management side of things. And when they were bringing up the hiring struggles. And so to make a very long story, painful story short, they brought me in a room and they had on a whiteboard all the names of clients who were canceling agreements. Then next to that, they had all the projects where we couldn't staff it effectively and they were going to overrun. And it was to the tune of about almost $1 million worth of money I was losing that day. Found out it was like you're driving a car 200 miles an hour towards a wall and you find this out, you're 6 feet from the wall and you're like, well, great. I know the wall's there now. I see it, but I can't slow down. So, and I just wasn't paying attention to the hiring stuff. And because we typically had a situation where I had 3 things. I had Indeed, Craigslist. We just post an ad. We'd hire 6, 8, 10 people quickly and easily. Or we knew smaller companies that usually weren't super busy. But that all changed in 2018. It was like everything we were doing, we went to that metaphorical well, if you will, to pull water, and there was nothing there. And I'm like, oh boy, this is a problem. And so that set a journey for the next 2 or 3 years to kind of figure out what works and really led to the creation of all these things.
So then now what are you doing on the recruiting side? How are you hiring? You mentioned that you have a course to help show people how you do your recruitment as well. Can we walk through some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I ended up figuring out some things that worked. I studied, like you mentioned, masterminds, mentors, books, traveled the country, and I wasn't able to find a system, but I was able to find bits and pieces. And so I took the family lineage. What did my grandfather, great grandfather do? That worked. What are people saying works in different industries? How does big tech do it? How do pharmaceutical companies do it? How do franchises do it? And so I looked at all these different things and I kind of pieced together what I thought would work. And then I spent a lot of money and time testing. And so we break it down into 4 key parts. You got to find them, you got to vet them, you got to hire them, and you got to retain them. So the way I define finding is building your list, right? Vetting is quickly sifting, sorting, and screening. In this current climate, your find list is going to be much, much, much greater in order to get at the end result that higher. You need to talk to a lot more people. So the entire model has to be built around that first step, which is a really robust method of finding candidates. Vetting them is having different ways to vet, right? There's some candidates who come in and they're highly qualified, so they almost want to skip processes. And there's other candidates where you want to run them through the entire process, which we'll talk about. Hiring is really about the offer letter. So it's saying, okay, for example, I was losing people because I wasn't hiring them right. I was giving them the offer letter via email. They were shopping it to their current employer, getting a $15,000, $20,000 raise to match what I was paying and never leaving. So I had to figure out, how do you hire? Like, how do you actually get that letter signed? And then how do you retain? How do you boost morale? How do you take a team and how do you motivate them in this current economic climate where everybody wants something different? Some people are money motivated. Some people are family time motivated. Some people are, hey, I don't want to commute an hour motivated. They want that 30-minute commute to and from job sites. So it was unpacking this system, and it became a system because every time I figured something out, it broke the next phase. So for example, when I figured out actually how to find candidates, my traditional 1-hour interviews, I was crushed. Like, I remember the first week I had 27 candidates on my calendar. I'm like, this is not going to work. Like, I can't do 27 hours of phone calls and 5 or 6 candidates are moving to the next round. So we built the biggest takeaway I realized is it's like baking a cake or making a meal. If you have one thing that's off, if you do make the perfect cake, but forget to spray the pan, you're done. And that's why hiring, I believe, is so difficult in this climate, is because you have to have every single piece working in harmony.
Yeah, absolutely. We've come up with a process that seems to be working quite well for us. Finding the people is a combination of, working with recruiters or just doing our own research and actually hunting them down. We haven't been waiting for people or posting ads. We found that didn't work for us. But we do what's called the rule of three, where if it's a new position that we've never hired for before, as we grow, then we interview at least 3 candidates for that position. Then plus we do a screening call. Each candidate gets interviewed by the 3 different people in 3 different locations, and we check at least 3 references. And it has to be a hell yes. The key to this is that everything has to be a hell yes for all 3 people when you get to the end. If somebody's like, I don't know, usually if it makes it to the 3rd interview, everyone's kind of saying yes, but it's still not always a hell yes sort of thing, right? So there's some hesitancy. The only thing we found in our process that we can't test for is really, are they good at their job, right? And you don't really know that until they start working. Can they do what they say they were going to do? We might have checked references. So unless you have some pointers on that, somebody might say, oh yeah, they were a great carpenter, they've done this or done that. And then you get them on the job site, you're like, you don't know as much as we were thinking, right? You talk the game, but can't walk the talk, sort of thing. Doesn't happen too often, but
yeah, we figured that out. That was like towards the end of the system. So what we do is what's called a skills assessment. And so we encourage this for every single person and every single type of role. So I'll give you an example. With me, when I was building this out, same issue, right? Mason, he's like, I've been doing this 25 years. I'm the best. You'd be blown away. I lay 350 block a day. You hear that, and it was ruining culture. So if you look at that retention piece, it was ruining culture to be like, hey, we got a new, and my foreman would roll his eyes. He'd be like, another guy, is he going to make it to lunch? And it was killing morale. And I'm like, I have to find a better way to do this. And so what we do is what's called the skills assessment. So they come to my yard. I have, and this was born from, I competed in high school. I went to a vocational high school, and I competed in masonry. I took 2nd in the country. And so I took that model that I knew showed skill, because how do you find out if you're 2nd in the country? What does that mean? It means that I placed 1st in my school, my district, my state, and then 2nd in the country. But it was a way to like effectively judge skill set. And so I modeled that in my industry, and we've done it now for tons of different industries. And what it is, so they show up to the yard, they're paid for that. And they're paid for the day. They sign a waiver. It's all, our labor lawyer reviews it. So you want to have that done. And they actually build everything. So we have an intake form. We're like, all right, you can lay brick, great. You can lay block, great. You can do stucco, great. And we literally go through, oh, you can't do concrete, no problem. X that out. My team knows how to stock it, set it up. There's cameras there. So they, workers' comp and everything. Some people get worried the first day. They're like, oh, they hurt their back. It's all fully secure in that regard. And they actually build something during that day. And so we can tell with 98% accuracy whether or not they're going to be effective in the field based on that assessment that we've designed. And we've seen it with carpenters, seen it with plumbers, you do it with demolition contractors, you do it with laborers. We actually have them come and mix mortar. So we're like, all right, here's the mixer. We've had people literally, I've been mixing 10 years, they can't start the mixer. We're like, all right, we'll pay you for the day. Thank you so much. No integration with the team, no problems. My yard manager coordinates and facilitates the entire thing. So there's never any issue. And now what's interesting, there's actually other benefits, and I'll explain them. So when you do this skills assessment, number one, you can accurately understand pay. We've had people that have undersold skill set. I'm good, but I'm not great. They show up, they do it. We're like, oh no, you're great. Like, you're great. We're going to pay you $6 an hour more than we were even talking about. They're like, really? Yeah. So you can determine whether or not they should come work for you. Number one. Number two, you can more accurately predict pay. Number three, you can excite your team. So we had a mason come in, diamond in the rough. We found this guy, and he closed down his business and did a fantastic job. This guy crushed the assessment. So I strategically, my team, we did an all hands meeting the next day at the yard. I left his work up. Well, what do you think the team did? Oh, who's this? They start walking over there. Who did this? Oh, this is so-and-so. He's going to be starting in a week. Wow, I'm excited. Can we have him on our job? Yeah, we'll talk about that. Like, we'll see. So you can actually build. So instead of what I had before, which was my foreman be like, oh, another guy. Yeah. Can I send them home by lunch if they're not good? Right. It goes from that to being like, wow, I can't, like, I've seen your work. You've passed that test. And now I'm excited to have you on my job site.
So that's a great way to do it. If you have the ability. So is there a way to do this for maybe a smaller companies that's not set up, that doesn't have a yard, that doesn't necessarily have the bandwidth, or, somebody that, you have a manager in the yard, but if it's a small company that's, 5, 6 guys, whether it's a plumber, carpenter or something, what do you suggest they do?
Well, so we've seen this with companies that have been really small. So obviously my company, we've been doing this a long time. We have a model that works, but we've seen it where they'll literally have somebody come to the job site. We have I'll give you a plumbing example. So he wants to see how people can sweat pipe and how they bend fittings and all that stuff. I'm not a plumbing expert. I understand it, but I'm not an expert. And so what he'll do is he'll actually have somebody come, and he's designed a 2-hour assessment. And so he'll have him come towards the end of a job. He's at the job, and from 3 to 5 o'clock or 4 to 6, he'll have him meet at his truck, and he'll sit in his plumbing van and literally have this person work the tools and have them bring their own tools. So you can do this. I mean, we've had companies, we have a handyman that I know, a friend of mine. It's literally him by himself, and he's trying to do this with laborers. And he took a project where the homeowners were away on vacation, and he was booking 4-hour assessments while he was working. So he was basically like, all right, you mix mud, you do this in one room and see if you can do it. And then in the other room, he had other people do it. And so this is somebody who, maybe is doing, over 6 figures a year, gross income, maybe over 100 grand, a good friend of mine. And he's taken it and condensed it. So you can expand or contract the model, but at the end of the day, what are you looking for? Do you have the right tools? Can you show up on time? How do you dress? How do you act? How do you introduce yourself on a job site? And do you have some physical ability that you claim to have? And it's pretty easy to adjust that based on, your means. We have big companies that do it way more advanced than even I do. Companies doing 9 figures are doing it, way different than us. They do classes. So they'll literally do like a day. Well, they'll bring 30 people in, and they'll be like, all right, we're going to make job offers. So it can be as small or as big as you see fit based on your company.
Right. Yeah, I like that. I think working something on the job, I think I'll be bringing this back to the team for some conversation to discuss that initial assessment, because we've gone through everything except we have a probational period, right? So we get to site. If things don't work out, then we're like, sorry, like there's a 3-month and we can basically let people go without reason. But the reason is always either it's not working for the team or you're just not delivering what we thought you'd be able to, sort of thing, right? So this is a great way to tackle that for sure. Let's talk about marketing a little bit. What are you doing to market your businesses, or how are you working with other people to market their businesses? There's so many things out there now.
Yeah, on the construction side, I mean, my company is a little different. So I'm in residential, commercial, and government. So we have 3 verticals. We do prevailing wage work too. But I mean, if you're predominantly residential, we focus on one of the best marketing tools, believe it or not, and I figured this out when we really started honing on the hiring, was building, in this day and age, is building a great team. And so there's obviously, and I know that might sound a little bit lackluster, but truly, I mean, we get more work from the fact that we did jobs faster. We're able to be flexible on scheduling. One of the most powerful sales tools we have is the ability to guarantee when we can start and when we can finish. And that's because we have a waiting list on the hiring side. So I think that's a strategy. If you're struggling right now, I would ask myself as a business owner, if I don't have the ability to start and stop jobs and condense and grow my labor pool as needed to finish projects fast. Like we won a huge project because they had a ridiculous timeline. We were 60 some odd % higher than the lower bidder, but we guaranteed a 4-week completion. They were talking like 10 to 12 weeks, and I ended up selling this project. And now we work with this high-end builder. We're doing everything for them. And it was interesting to find out, because the pain point in the marketplace now is, do you have good help? Can you get it done quickly? And will you show up when you say you're going to show up? Because as business owners, when somebody doesn't, or a business manager, if somebody doesn't show up, or you have less skilled labor, it's taking you longer to do the job. Hey, sorry, my team's out today. I'm not going to be at the site. And so that's actually, if you can lean into that, huge selling technique that I didn't even realize or had imagined would be a thing. And then there's obviously traditional marketing stuff we can talk about too.
Yeah, the timing is so important on a lot of projects, especially nowadays. You find like everybody's so busy, at least where we are too, that they're not showing up when they say they're going to show up and they'll get delayed, and it's not, maybe because added work gets, if